How's it going, everybody? My name is Jordan Kenyon, the host of CT Business Podcast, and today you're going to be hearing from Drew Burnett, the owner of Drews Honeybees out of Norwich, Connecticut. We are going to cover a lot today with how he started, what he did in the past, how this virus is affecting his business. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. All right, so let's get going. So Drew, why don't you tell me how you got into the business and how you started?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I see the answer to that kind of starts in my childhood. I've always been fascinated by insects. I'd always be that kid who like ran out in the backyard and liked to flip over rocks and look at the creatures below. And I didn't pursue that in college at all. So I really, after college, I was kind of regretting that I never pursued what, kind of had been my first love. And so I thought I'd get into keeping honeybees, and I did. And at first I was an inept beekeeper, and a lot of my bees died. And but gradually I learned the ins and outs of honeybee husbandry, and I became more effective, and my bees began doing much better and being more productive. And at that time when I was, my beekeeping operation was expanding, I was teaching, and I was in a struggling school district, and it was tough. So I began to, what I did is I left and I went into beekeeping full time, and several years subsequent to that, we launched what most people know us for, which is our wholly natural organic skincare line. I'm not saying a lot of people know us. We're pretty small, but we've got big aspirations, and so that's kind of the expedited or the shortened version of how I got where I am.
Did you start your honeybee operation with intentions of going into business, or did you just want to start off as a hobby and you started making money from it? And how'd the whole business aspect start?
Well, it started as very much a money-losing hobby, and it with no intentions for business whatsoever. But that gradually morphed. I mean, over years, that morphed into something that was both profitable and something I wanted to make a go of. Yeah. So, but at first, it was quite unprofitable. At first, it was a money sink.
Is beekeeping an expensive business? Or is it the initial purchase of the bees that is large, or what's the overhead side of beekeeping look like?
Well, the big overhead side of beekeeping, there's some equipment for honey processing and wax processing, but that's not the bigger. Well, actually, that equipment is quite expensive to get the really good equipment that speeds along processing of honey and wax. But there's also the cost of each, the physical structure of each hive. And that includes the boxes, the frames, the covers, the bottom board. And then there's other stuff like trucks. And, we don't have a good truck to date. We do all, and by a good truck, I mean a truck with a hydraulic arm that you can, spin around and just makes moving hives so much easier.
You would pick up the hive and just put it right in the back of the truck and move it that way?
Yep, a big flatbed with a hydraulic arm, and we don't have that yet. So it's a lot of grunt work, and we'll get there. But so there's a lot of it's not terribly expensive, and there is value in bees, and if you're suffering high winter losses, that's very costly. And early on, I was suffering high winter losses, but I've become more adept at managing the problems that plague the honeybee. Yeah, so I retain a lot of value year to year in the value of living bees.
Where'd you learn to take care of bees a little bit better? When you first bought them, did you just kind of wing it, or did you do a little bit of homework and then you started to manage it a little bit better, or do you have mentors in this business?
Yeah, I have several very good mentors. And I mean, I have mentors. I would say 3 that are very helpful in helping me come up with means of treating my bees for there are several mites that really cause problems with the bees. One in particular, which recently jumped cross species to the Western honeybee, which is what we think of as the honeybee. And it transmits all sorts of mites and pathogens, and it doesn't just like arrive at a level of homeostasis within the hive. The population increases exponentially until it kills the hive. So you need to artificially manage that lack of evolutionary preparation with natural organic acids, formic acid and oxalic acid, the vapors of which are lethal to the mite at levels tolerable to the honeybee. Yeah. So yeah, there's
scientific.
A lot. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not hard or anything because it's what I do, and it's not hard when you're around it for a bit. But it is a scientifically informed pursuit, which I'm sure what you do is. I mean, there's a lot to what you do that I would be wholly unaware of. But it doesn't mean I know it exists. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't really realize it until you get into the business. And then it starting to sound a lot more scientific than it is, and you're like, whoa. Is that are honeybees high maintenance to actually? You did say like you lost them in the beginning, but are they high maintenance to stay alive, or does that go into that scientific thing you were just explaining with all the mites?
They are, I would say, moderate maintenance. I don't want people to get bees thinking that, they're just a honey machine. You don't have to do anything. So I would say they're moderate maintenance. You don't have to, check in on them every week. You do have to stay abreast of several key health variables. The most important one I'd say is mites, but there's also pesticide exposures, and there are telltale signs of, and that's hard to manage because, bees forage 3 miles from the hive, and in that 3-mile radius, that's about over 28 square miles that the bees are foraging on. And you've got to, not perfectly, but you've got to account for the agricultural chemicals used in that area. I mean, a lot of it is just you'll see the signs of the bees, like sickly and dying bees. So
do you when you're looking for a place to put a hive, do you contact the landowner and try and work out a deal? Do you purchase the land, and do you go into that? You look at what's around that 3-mile radius of that actual land that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I do. I use Google Maps, and I try and get a good lay of the land. With Google Maps, you can get a pretty good idea of what the land use is, the surrounding land use. And, it's not perfect. And you can reach out to farmers. Some of them are receptive to questions, some are not. And you can, you can get a good lay of the land through Google Maps. And sorry, what was this? I thought that was a 2-part question, but I'm forgetting the second part.
The first part was, do you purchase the land, or do you work out a deal with the landowner to kind of leave your hives there?
We do have leases. However, most of them are are like a $1 lease with, honey and other goodies. So
a good trade-off.
Yeah, most people are happy to have bees around because bees, increase yields of a lot of common agricultural crops. I mean, not like the grain crops, but basically any like colored fruit, veggie, nut, or bean, or bees will increase yields and sometimes dramatically increase yields. Through pollination, yeah.
So with the season we've had, the winter, I saw on your Instagram saying that it's been warmer, which could cause some problems with the honeybees. Now, do you think that could happen with how warm our winter was and how nice our spring has been?
Yeah, I do think it is a factor. According to mentors that are much more knowledgeable than I am, there are really 2 factors that affect the honeybee timing of their spring population expansions, because the population really dwindles in winter, and it's a small little cluster of bees that stay warm, move throughout the hive, and consume the honey stores all throughout the hive because they store no calories on their body. It's all, I mean, if they run out of calories in the hive, the gig's up. They will starve.
They're done.
Yeah. So when they begin expanding, they exponentially increase their need for resources. And if they mistime that that expansion and they run out of food, they will starve. So we are working like crazy to stay on top of that. We have to stay on top. We haven't had a single hive starve, and we always err on the side of caution and over application of emergency feed.
So
because
you can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying, we provide emergency feed, and they're making good use of it. Well, some hives are. Most of our hives would not have reached starvation, but some would have. And we're making sure that we stay on top of their needs, and we provide enough food until they can start bringing in more food when the weather turns and the blossoms are available, which is going to be very soon.
It is. So what is this emergency feed that you feed them?
Well, it's two things. It's like a protein supplement patty, which is actually only about 18% protein. If you can't give bees too much protein or they won't eat it. And that increases their what's called the fat body of the bee. I don't even know the scientific term. It allows the bee to produce what's called more royal jelly, which is what's fed to larvae and the queen bee. So that ability to produce royal jelly allows them to rear more young, and it allows a broader population. But the more important thing at this time of the year is fondant, and it's very much like baker's fondant. It is like baker's fondant, except the way we make it. It has a little apple cider vinegar, which acts as an enzyme to invert the sugars. And I'll be totally candid, I don't understand the chemistry behind it. But it's more readily accessible to the dietary needs of the honeybee. Yeah. So it's a blob of, it's like a white mass of fondant, similar to what a baker uses, but it probably wouldn't, it doesn't taste as good as what a baker uses, because you can tell there's, apple cider vinegar and other kind of bitter substances.
It'd be a little bit bitter. Probably not something you'd want to eat.
Yeah.
So when you left your teaching job, were you teaching in, what district were you teaching in?
I was teaching in Norwich. Yep.
Oh, okay. When you left that job, had the honeybee business supplemented the income, or was it just one of those, I can't take my job, I need to do this?
Well, it was a bit of both. I mean, it was supplementing my income, but, at really key times of the year, due to the teaching schedule, I was very busy. So I wasn't able to expand my operation in the ways that I wanted. So, because there's a lot of springtime work, getting bees ready and starting for, getting what are called supers on the hive, which are essentially boxes on top of the hive filled with frames that the bees then fill up with honey. And that's the honey that you take above and beyond what the bees need. So there's a lot of work that goes into getting bees getting started in the spring. And my teaching obligation interfered with that. And I was also struggling with the environment. So I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, I left to really just, make a go of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how we all start. We just jump in and hope for the best. And
absolutely, there were no guarantees, that's for sure.
No, there's nothing guaranteed, especially with everything that's going on right now.
Oh boy,
it's a scary time to be in business.
Yeah, it is. Oh, boy, I'm aware that I'm fortunate in some regards, because agricultural rhythms remain. I mean, how we address them, we used to go to apiaries in like 2 or 3. Now we all send single people, and by themselves, and so that's changed. But I'm sure the price for honey will drop, but there will be a price for honey. It's not like a closed restaurant or something. So we're fortunate in that regard.
So has it affected your business largely, or has it just kind of made it a little bit more difficult to operate?
No, it has affected. It's mostly affected the body care side of the business, which we're fortunate that if that kind of sputters for a bit, we can kind of redirect efforts towards the agricultural front of the business. So we are super fortunate for just how things were at this outset, and we're aware of that. But people aren't thinking about wholly natural organic body care right now, and I don't blame them. That's totally natural, and I don't want to try and insert myself, we don't create an essential product. So, that's the truth. So, we'll get through it. It'll be difficult. Brick and mortar orders have really dried up. Online orders have stayed pretty regular. But yeah, so, we're hustling, doing what we can, adapting as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, taking it day by day. Well,
Yeah.
what's a bigger part of your business, e-commerce or brick and mortar?
At this time, brick and mortar.
Do you guys have a actual location, or do you sell products into other stores?
Yeah, we do not have our own location. We sell all our brick and mortar. Our sales are to other stores, co-ops, natural food stores, certain chain partners like Big Y.
Yeah, I saw that.
Cool.
Fiddleheads, right?
The Fiddleheads, yep. We're Fiddleheads is wonderful. They were actually the first place to give us a shot. I just think the world of the team there at Fiddleheads. Yeah, I'm very grateful to them. Yeah.
So how do you get into a company like Big Y or Fiddleheads, and after you get in, what did it do for your business?
Well, Fiddleheads, you just kind of approach them. You say, hey, this is the company I'm starting. This is the products we have. Do you have any interest? And they were the first. There are retailer number 0001. I don't need all those zeros in the beginning, but I put them there, as an aspiration.
Yeah, just in case one day they're all filled up and it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they were very receptive, and they were, and not only that, they stuck with us through mistakes that we've made. We've always selected really high quality ingredients from ethical and sustainable agricultural operations. However, some of our early products and we fell down in execution. I just didn't realize how, at the outset of this venture, how much I had to learn. And none of our products were ever, I don't want to give the impression that there was ever any danger, because there's a lot of really indefensible, ingredients in body care. Ingredients you wouldn't want to apply to yourself or a child, or it's the Wild West. You can basically do whatever you want. Yeah, so I don't want to give the impression that we ever failed in that regard, but some of our early products were underwhelming. The consistency wasn't ideal. We've addressed that, and retailers like Fiddleheads have been extremely understanding and gracious. Yeah, supportive. Oh, awesome. And Big Y, that's a little different. Big Y, I'm going to give you a little story. I once went, maybe in 2018, early in 2018, I went to a bunch of chain retail stores just to introduce myself. And I went to one prior to Big Y, and I had a really bad interaction. A woman opened the door for me. She said I could enter. So I did, and there was no one in like the vestibule area where, the greeter area. There was no one there. So I walked in a little bit. And a man, I walked in 100 feet, and a man saw me and just yelled at me, something like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And, "All right, time to leave." And not only that, even as we were leaving, he put his hand on me, and it wasn't like, "It's all right, buddy." It was like, I think it was meant to menace. And
to get the hell out and don't come back.
Yeah, get out, don't come out, and I'm going to see sure that you get out. And I mean, obviously, I was in his area. I'm leaving. It was unnecessary. So then I was kind of shaken, and I drove to Big Y, and I had about a little over an hour drive. And I said a totally different reaction. The woman there said, "Oh, the person you want to talk to is, so-and-so. And she gave me his number, his direct number. She gave me his email. So I sent an email, and I just think, oh, he probably won't get back to me. He got right back to me. He gave me, an appointment for to meet up. Big Y, in my experience, has been very different in how they treat, local producers with a dream, taking an unconventional approach. It's night and day. I mean,
How was that meeting with Big Y? Because I know when I first started out, I would call property managers to do some landscaping, and I would be sitting there on the phone, before you call them, you're like, oh, you're trying to map it in your head how you're going to talk, and you're like, oh, I'm going to say this. Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, you get all nervous. So how was that first meeting with Big Y? how'd it go? Obviously it went well, but like, how was it? Or what's like the process with that?
Well, the buyer on my first meeting, I felt had a pretty good idea of our products, had spent time with the literature and the letter I sent along. So he had his decision before I even sat down, which was kind of comforting. You know, it's like a shot in the arm because, you know, it's a boost. You know, oh yeah, we want to carry your products and we'll carry it at, you know, such and such store. It's not throughout all the big Ys, but you know, it's like a trial retail period and one of your local big Ys, one or more. Yeah, so it was, I went in like nerve wracked and,
Yeah.
but my nerves were quickly put at ease by, he's like, hey, I like what you're doing. And you know, that gives you some confidence and it made the meeting go pretty well. I'm sure I still stumbled, but you know.
Yeah, we all do until until we're these big guys that, you know, have hundreds of meetings, thousands of meetings under our belt, and it's just another day.
Yeah. But for us, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, for us, you walk into Big Y, you're like, holy hell, this is a whole different world. So does like having someone like Big Y and Fiddleheads in your corner, does it help with leverage when you're going to other retailers and saying, hey, we're in such and such stores in Big Y, we have X amount at Fiddleheads, and do they kind of look at you a little bit differently? Because
absolutely. With there, in my experience, there in the retail, brick and mortar retail landscape, and even you can apply this to online retailers. They want to see success demonstrated elsewhere before they take a chance on you. Big Y is not like that. Big Y will take a chance on you, absent your demonstration of success. So, and you know, other retailers have communicated that they're like, yeah, we want to see, you know, that such and such distribution with, you know, such and such moving so much product, whatever. Big Y didn't have that, you know, barrier to a partnership. Yeah. Neither did Fiddleheads, and there's a lot of other like co-ops, natural food stores, and even small chains that that don't have that same barrier. You know, because if everyone says you have to demonstrate a success elsewhere, that's a pretty tough barrier to surmount because, you know, no one's going to give you the chance. So it's good that there are those that will take a chance on, you know, someone unproven who's taking a different approach and, you know, trying something new.
No, that's always good. It is always tough when people say, like, in our business, they're like, we want to see you maintain 5 similar sized properties. Well, if you haven't maintained anybody, you need that one person to say yes.
Yeah.
So does like Whole Foods your avenue is more towards like a higher end or like a more organic focused retailer, right? So like Whole Foods or something with that, or
in general, yes. Yeah.
What's distribution look like on your end? How long does it take? Well, first off, how long does it take for the actual hive to be able to be what would you call it? Like you would go and take all the honey out.
Mm-hmm.
How long does that take?
Well, we do 2 what I call honey pulls a year, which is where honey harvest, which is where we take those boxes that we put on top of what's called the brood nest, where they raise all the young bees and such, and they store like the food they need. We do 2 pulls where we take the boxes on top, and we pull them off the hive. And there are ways we have of doing that where we can clear the bees out pretty efficiently. We got something called a bee escape, where the bees can go down into the brood nest, but they can't go back up. So you put a bee escape on underneath the honey you're going to take. The bees go down and they can't re-enter the honey supers. So you know, a day later you can come back and there will be barely any bees in the supers you need to take. So so we do 2 of those a year, and it takes months for the bees to produce honey capable of harvest. The processing doesn't take like months, but it's like, you know, and you know, obviously you're not right there when the bees are doing all the work, but the honey harvest, you know, you are right there and doing all the work, and it takes days. So, you know, it's days of intensive work instead of, you know, months of passive work, I guess you could put it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then it's, and then there's the distribution, which takes more time than maybe as much as the other two, more as much as time as the other two things I just mentioned, the honey creation and the honey manufacture, for lack of a better term, by the bees, and the honey processing, and wax. And then there's also like the distribution element. And one of the things that we only provide one of the agricultural inputs in our products. We don't have, the rest we source worldwide from, ethical farmers worldwide, whether it's
so you'll buy honey to be able to make to what?
Well, no, we can provide honey, but we can't provide, vanilla, cardamom.
Oh, okay.
Other inputs in our products, we have no foot in that game, so we procure it, and it's amazing the partners you can find all over the world. I'm talking Bosnia, Australia, Italy, all over the world, who can provide the agricultural inputs that you need. And I mean, there's no way that with our resources we could undertake such an operation. And then again, we don't even have the climate. No one in this is growing vanilla domestically. No one's growing cardamom or any other of those tropical plants domestically. So we got to source a lot. Yeah.
And then even if you did, that would be multiple businesses
Yeah.
in its own. So if
Absolutely.
you can find a quality product at a price point that's good, as long as it meets your standards, then that probably makes things a lot easier on your end.
Absolutely. And one of the things I feel we've done a poor job to date, and we're really targeting improving, is that we got to tell the stories of our partner farmers. Some of our partner farmers have the most amazing stories. They're nothing short of human triumphs over really difficult circumstances. And we really haven't told those stories. We kind of do a poor job of relaying one story at the top of our ingredients page. If you go there's a story about the man and farm that grows our helichrysum oil, which is just a wonderful oil for healing skin. And he's a wonderful man. He runs a fantastic operation, and he hires people of all faiths and nationalities to try and heal the wounds that led to genocide and civil war in his country when he was a boy in the 90s.
And what country is that?
Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yeah.
Wow.
There was he lived through the genocide, and he does everything he can in his day-to-day to repair those wounds.
And what, you want to relay those stories on the actual packaging or through your social media outlets?
Social media, not so much the packaging, just because the space tends to be very limited. Maybe on some larger packages that we're targeting, we could begin to tell a story, but we'd have to kind of just tell a little blurb and link to maybe a web page or a social media post or something like that. Yeah, we gotta do better, because honestly, if people don't know how we're different, if they don't know we're not using chemist-made, flavors, dyes, fragrances, preservatives, or otherwise, if they don't know it's the fruit of the plant, like a genuine agricultural product, we will fail. And,
yeah, that's the whole thing of what makes you guys different, is the fact that you're not using chemists. You're all organic.
Yeah, and we're already paying more for the inputs. So if people don't know the difference between vanilla and vanilla flavor, we will fail. Yeah, so we gotta tell that story, and it's necessary.
If there isn't a language barrier there, maybe you could do a Zoom call with them, throw it up on your Instagram or something. That'd be pretty
Absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, most of our well, except for 2 stores in Canada, all of our retail partners currently speak English, and sometimes maybe we have some social media following around the world, but we don't have distribution around the world. It's all, other than 2 stores in Canada, all in the lower 48, not even in California or Alaska. Yeah.
So you are in multiple states, or you're locally here?
We are mostly in the Northeast, but we're now out as far as Ohio, as far south as Virginia, and we still got a lot of work and hustle to do. Yeah. So, but kind of not like we're not thick in those areas. We're like a store in Virginia, and It's
How do
like
you
an
get,
outpost almost.
how do you get into something like that? Do you call them? Do they call you? Is it a big chain, or is it a small mom and pop that might have just saw you guys on Instagram?
Sometimes it's that, but usually we will reach out to stores that we identify as that could be, profitable, mutually profitable partners. And we'll reach out and we'll say, hey, this is what we're doing. We'd like to send you, a free, no obligation package. Just introduce ourselves. It's a little risk because, if they say no, we're out a little money, but that's okay. It's the risk we have to take, and we do so. And most of the people we identify as a possible retail partner are open to carrying our products. And we've really learned about who it will be more receptive to our message. Part of our, we are a for-profit business. However, we have some not-for-profit elements, like 20% of our profits go to the Honeybee program at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, where they have before made discoveries, and they're trying to, again, that have enabled what scientists term the green revolution. Our increase in crop yields have a lot of that. Well, some of them, I shouldn't say a lot. Like I forget there was a huge breakthrough it's in Lockwood Farm in Hamden, Connecticut, and there was a huge breakthrough there on some genetic double crossing corn or something, which allowed it to increase yields and retain its genetic characteristics generation after generation. And that was done right in Hamden, Connecticut, and they're making these moonshots at right now they're working on, among other things, a northern hardy honeybee that can coexist with all the problems that plague it.
So what do? They modify the DNA and kind of inject it into the honeybee, or?
They do they do controlled breeding operations. So they may not, like the bees still breed naturally. However, they control the bees that are available. And when queen bees leave the hive, they go on what's called one mating flight in their life, and they'll mate with up to like 15 male bees called drones. Okay. And then they'll store that semen for the rest of their life in a specialized gland, and that will provide the semen they need to produce eggs for the rest of their life. I apologize. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Nope. So by controlling the genetics of the hives that are sending out drones, they can imperfectly control the breeding, the nature of the resulting bees, the genetics of the resulting bees. So they do that, and to be honest, I don't have a science education, and the genetics are beyond me. I don't understand it. There's migrating alleles and stuff, and I don't understand it. But they've got credible PhD entomologists who do and are doing fantastic work, and I don't want to overstate our support. Our support has been limited because we don't have the financial resources. We hope we get there, but yeah. Today,
it's the little things that give them some sort of funding. Whether 20% of whatever it is, it's still you guys are making attempts.
Yeah, and we hope it increases as we go forward.
So, I had a question. I can't remember. We'll go back to the distribution. Maybe it'll pop back into my head. So after you harvest the actual honey, what does one hive produce as far as honey? As in forms of action. Do you know how much one hive can produce in forms of lip balms or amount of wax?
So when we harvest honey, we're harvesting two things. We're harvesting wax, which is what the bees cap the honey. They get the honey to a certain percentage of water, between 15 and 18%, and then they cap it, and that stops any further dehydration of the honey. What does one hive create? That is highly variable. It depends on the health and population of the hive. It depends on the available forage. So what you need to produce a lot of honey is you need a healthy hive with lots of bees, because that means lots of foragers and lots of bees to process the honey or the nectar into honey when it comes back. But those are two necessary conditions. If either one is missing, if you don't have a healthy colony with a high population, or you don't have, the blossoms producing the nectar and pollen they need, you will not get much honey or at all. You will not get much honey or any honey. You need those two conditions to be met. And if they are met, then you can get, I think our record is 330 pounds from a hive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that's a record. That's out of, probably, well, no, maybe not. Maybe not 1,000 honey pole or 1,000 hives we've taken honey from. So that's an anomalous number. That's not.
So
that's outside
what would be an average? 200, 250?
Yeah. No, it's highly dependent year to year. I'd say probably around 100.
Okay, 100 pounds per hive.
Yeah, but we have had years and hives, not a year where we have to do this for all hives, but where we have to feed hives, where they don't produce enough to meet their own needs, so we have to provide food.
Okay.
So it runs the gamut from having to give them food to hundreds of pounds.
So what does 300 pounds of honey equate to when it comes to making your bombs or your hand creams?
Well, we actually don't use honey in our products yet, and there's a reason for that, and we may get into it. But honey is, because it's a water-based solution, as soon as you introduce water with like triglyceride, like fatty oils and other oils, you introduce the possibility of fouling, spoiling, like microbes growing on that water. It's unlikely with honey because it's such a low percentage of water, but that's why like a lot of lotions and stuff need all sorts of preservatives to wipe out life, to wipe out the possibility of microbes growing. So we don't have any water-based products yet. We are going to get there. So what we're primarily using in our products is wax. And in 300 pounds of honey, or say 100 pounds as a reference point, you'll probably get in, because you literally cut off the face of the comb with a hot knife. You cut off the wax, and then you're left with kind of like sloppy wax, and then you put the honey in a centrifugal spinner, and the honey comes out, and then you minimally strain it. We don't heat it or anything because we don't want to destroy any of the natural enzymes, or we put it through a strainer to take out like the large stuff, but it still has pollen and stuff. And frankly, it's the impurities is a bad word, but it's the impurities in honey that are the more redeeming part, the pollens and the parts of the hive, and the parts that make it better for like stuff like allergies. But so we probably get of processed wax in 100 pounds, probably about 4 to 6 pounds of wax. And that's not 4 to 6 pounds of slop. That's 4 to 6, because
usable wax.
Of usable refined wax, where you put it through what's called the pressure filter, which is literally, it heats it up and pressurizes it, and that pressure drives all the impurities, all like the impurities you don't want in refined beeswax to the bottom, so you can easily just scrape it off when it hardens, and you got a nice block of wax.
So 4 to 5 pounds of wax, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw your hand creams are like what, 3-4 ounces?
2 ounces, yeah, 2 ounces.
So you need a lot of, especially if you're selling to Big Y and other places, you need a lot of hives to produce a high quantity of wax, right?
Yeah, and we're right at the cusp already where we're not going to be able to meet all our needs, and that's kind of a good problem. So we're going to have to procure wax from other people I know. Because it takes time to gear up a beekeeping operation, and then it takes time to like manage it, and it's
a whole learning process.
Yeah. So Yeah, so I mean, we're not going to be able to, we hope, and it'd be a good problem to have, that we're no longer able to meet all our wax needs.
And then at what point you'll either purchase it or you'll start other hives and
Yeah, probably a combination of the two, but our big stopgap measure will be purchasing beeswax from other producers. Yeah.
that what meet your standards of
Yeah, standards of bee husbandry and yeah.
So what do you guys do with the honey? Do you make honey or do you sell it to other people that then make it, or?
We currently sell it almost entirely in bulk. I still keep some to as mostly as gifts actually. I keep I withhold a small part of what we produce, and we fill 180-pound drums, or drums that are 180 pounds when full, and we sell it all in bulk. And the reason we do that is because we have a bulk purchaser who gives us, our last year, and we'll see what happens this year, because frankly, I'm sure, I don't even look, but I'm sure agricultural prices are falling. Just due to everything, every prices of a lot of things are falling.
Everything's falling. Even things that aren't directly affected is just falling right now.
Yeah, because the demand is just cratered. So last year we got $4 a pound for as much as we could produce. We could probably get $6 a pound at retail, but then we would have to manage distribution. We'd have to manage packaging, labeling, and it's just we don't see that $2, that possible $2 as worth the efficiency and guaranteed $4, and not only that, favorable payment terms, like they'll pay me months before we deliver anything,
which is good.
Yeah,
usually it's months after you deliver it.
Yeah, no, they provide. They're fantastic, and it's hard. While we do want to create a brand, and we realize that selling our honey without our name on it is not conducive to that, it's hard to break away from our strongest revenue stream. So that's
maybe one day honey will be an option, but not right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We definitely want to get into honey. We want to sell it under our own brand name. We're trying to, build a brand, and selling it where it's not used with our name on it is not conducive to that. And I'm totally aware of that. It's just, it's hard to break away from at this time.
To justify going into what you said, getting a whole nother operation going, it doesn't make sense, at least right now.
Yeah.
So,
although we are going to be, I forgot I was going to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I really want to say is we're at a couple apiaries. We're going to be producing comb honey, which is normally when you create honey, or when you make honey, you extract it out of the comb. Another option is you cut the comb right out of the frame. You just cut like a square out, and you put it in a little tray, and you seal it, and you sell it as comb honey. And we're going to be doing that this year at least one apiary. And we are going to be selling that under our brand name.
And I may be wrong on this, but can you actually eat the comb how it comes out, or so you would just open it up and eat it how it comes?
It's entirely edible. It's chewy. I mean, the wax and the honey are both edible. It's like we'll see if it's a mistake or not. A lot of people look at it and they're like, "What is that?" They don't know what it is. We got to probably do a little customer education as to what comb honey is, because some people see it, and we've done it in the past and it hasn't gone well because most people don't know what it is. So we got to educate people about that, and we hope it's going to be a trial, and we'll see how it goes, and we will be selling that under our brand name. But that's
hopefully
still
a good trial.
Probably August, when we're ready to go with that.
And that's
we haven't even put we haven't even put the boxes with the frames for the bees to make the comb honey on yet. That's still in the future, and when we do, they'll get started, and but we'll probably be pulling those boxes late July, early August.
And that'll be your first pull of the season, and again at the end of the year.
Yeah, and then early fall. And we got to be careful with our early fall pull that the bees have enough, because if you take too much from them, they can starve, and so we really do a lot of weighing hives because most of a hive weight is due to the water or due to the liquid content of the honey. So just by weighing a hive, you can get a good idea of their stores for the winter, because they're not producing anything in the winter. They're relying on what they've already produced, and if you take too much, they will starve.
And so that makes for bigger problems down the road.
Oh, it's a huge financial blow, and not only that, it's sad and cruel. So we don't want to do that.
So let's go back to what's the different, like, obvious differences, but what's some major differences between like your organic bombs and skincare products versus what is more uh I don't want to say mainstream, but more your go-tos or your chemical infused
Mhm.
ones.
Yeah. Well, the difference is that ours are always, the term I use is wholly natural, because a lot of people will claim use the word natural when it's not natural. If it's made by a chemist, in my eyes, it's not natural. It is a artificial compound. Um, we never use those. And I don't want to, scare people, but in body care, there have been efforts to ban the most uh, injurious offenders in skincare, and I'm talking about, like, known carcinogens, known endocrine disruptors, um, that are still that American companies still put in body care, and it's pretty much just American companies, because other companies, other countries like Canada, other developed countries, Canada, the EU, have banned these chemicals, so they're pretty much only available in our country. And not only that, there was just an effort, well, actually recent, but it was before the pandemic. There was a California effort to ban the 12 most, probably the 12 worst offenders that are still allowed in the U.S. personal care market, and it failed due to industry lobbying. But they don't lobby honestly; they lobby behind front groups, so no one knows who's funding them. They don't want their fingerprints on. Yeah, we want to still use stuff with carcinogenic potential and endocrine disrupting potential, and it's not like the science on it is uncertain. It's very certain about, like, formaldehyde, methyl mercury, other like really problematic chemicals that are, and methyl mercury is a neurotoxic disruptor. It interrupts like proper nervous system development, including the brain, and it's flabbergasts me, and I deal with it often, that companies will defend such practices, and they won't do it honestly, which is telling. They won't, company A won't go say, oh no, we want to continue using this. Company A and company B and company C will get together and put millions of dollars behind a front group that will then argue so they can keep their fingers off it. And in California, at least, they won. The act, the California Toxic Free Cosmetic Act, I believe it's called, which banned the 12 worst offenders. It failed. It failed against industry pressure. So we don't do that. We don't do that, and I have no interest in doing that. Like, if I could create a profitable company selling stuff that I wouldn't want to put on my children, I have no interest in that. Like, I mean, I don't want to fail, but I'd rather fail than do that. We could pivot back to bees, and the skincare thing could fail, and I'd rather that than than make millions.
It's more about ethics than it is about the money.
It's more about ethics, and more about just, what would you create if you were going to use every product on your family, intensively. I have no interest in doing that, and some people do, and I think it's unfortunate.
So I got a couple questions before we end things here.
Hey, I'm enjoying this. You keep.
I know, but we might have to do a second one before it gets too long. What it looks like is we'll have a lot of time on our hands, at least for the next couple of weeks. So a follow-up question, but
absolutely.
So we kind of already touched on what the coronavirus has done to your business, so I'll skip that one.
Okay.
But what's the end goal for your company? Like, where do you want to be in, like, the next 10 years? Where would you like to be? Would you like to be like the major corporations, or you just want to stay small and local, or what do you want?
We want to bring, our founding values: small, local, honest agricultural production, sustainable agricultural production, to a grand scale. I make no bones about, we have large aspirations. So we would like to, ideally, we challenge the established giants in the industry. That's my goal. And not only that, by outcompeting them in certain areas, we'd force them to do better.
Which does better for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to, leverage our competition to force, better practices on all the industry. I think and I realize that sounds self-aggrandizing, and it is self-aggrandizing, but it is a hope, and it is where.
I mean, that's exactly what Elon Musk did with Tesla. He didn't want to control the market. He wanted to force other companies to now produce electric vehicles, which ultimately did happen.
Yeah, I'll never be an Elon Musk, but I would like to.
I'd
like to put pressure on the established players.
Hey, and it even no matter what level it is, it's the same philosophy. If you can disrupt it enough and force enough companies to then change, then that at the end of the day helps everybody that's involved.
Absolutely. If we could, and we're gonna. And another thing, I mentioned it real about telling our story in regard to our partner farmers, but we also need to tell the story and not embellish about the U.S. personal care market and what is in common products. Because I think the most meaningful thing I could say is that a lot of common products, I would, if I don't have children, I do have nieces and nephews, and I wouldn't apply them to my nieces and nephews, or if I, am blessed enough to have children, I won't apply them to my children. So that's the most meaningful thing I can say. The people I want to protect the most, won't apply those chemicals to their bodies until, I don't control that anymore. And, so that's, we want to exert force for what we see as a pretty, as a good.
And it's a noble cause.
Yeah, we hope. We got a lot of work to do before we get there, though. We got a lot to do. Oh, I mentioned the narrative. Oh, I already mentioned. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's
I apologize. That? Well, I mentioned that we want to provide an accurate picture of pervading current practices by the big players, because while it's cheap to fill a tube with water and petrochemicals, and you can sell a 18-ounce tube for $9. There are downsides to that approach, and we want to accurately reflect them in our marketing.
Where yours might be slightly more expensive, but when you look at what the causes are to your body over the long term, a couple bucks isn't really that much in the bigger picture.
Absolutely. I mean, there are downstream health effects to the chemicals we subject our bodies to. Yeah.
So going to your 10-year, your plans of being one of the big guys, what kind of plans are you putting in place to kind of make that happen?
Well, we are, and this has all been upended. We are in the process of product development, creating between 6 and 8 new products, none of which are lip balms. They're all like higher impact, broader use products. They are aromatherapy bombs. There's a beauty balm. There are lotions. There is a recovery balm. And we are in the process of creating those. However, we were anticipating having those in hand, ready to sell in September. That's not going to happen due to the realities of the market turmoil and disruption. We work with a supplier in northern Italy, and I just got the saddest email a little while ago. Weeks ago, that said, they may or may not meet their obligations. And I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing them at all. Like, human lives, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Italy's pretty in the
not only that,
big problem right now.
Yeah, it's right outside Bergamo, which is the hardest hit area. It's bergamot oil. It's an oil from a citrus fruit, and and they just said, the oil, the fruit may rot on the vine this year. And I just sent back, an email saying, hey, do what you can, save lives. This isn't important. We can. So what I'm saying is our September timetable is going to be delayed, and then there are manufacturing issues with. Our manufacturer is trying to produce necessary medical supplies now, which, with its two biggest systems, I think a 50,000 gallon tank and a 40,000 gallon tank are now producing sanitizers. And that's, that we never use those systems because we're not producing, such huge batches. But that sends the bigger players down to smaller equipment, and in time they may, we don't know what's going to happen. We're continuing to do what we can to develop those products. We're working on the narrative revamp, which we got to tell our story or we will fail. And not only that, we're also trying to identify the people and partners to execute what we need to do. And that mostly is involved outreach to schools all over the Northeast, colleges that have hungry kids that are willing to sacrifice in the near term for, something, for a vision, for an idea and a goal. And we're identifying those people now. And, there's some amazing kids that are, far more impressive than I was at their age, that's for sure. Crazy. These kids are so sharp. It's embarrassing to me. I think of where I was at their age and I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah. So those are the three parts, products, narrative, and people to make it so.
That's awesome. So we'll take a look. What do you like to do in your free time when you're not harvesting bees, or is that everything you're doing right now?
I mean, it's a lot of what I'm doing, but I still, I used to like wrestling, but I'm kind of too old.
Oh, you wrestled? I wrestled 12 years. I wrestled.
How many years?
12.
Oh, good for you. That's as many years as I wrestled. I wrestled I started in my sophomore year of high school, and I just loved it. And wrestled unsuccessfully for a couple years in college. And but I'm 37 now, and it's just not happening anymore. So I mean, I've wrestled a long time, but I have been like lifting weights somewhat, but I kind of got out of that when I got really busy, and I wanted to get back into it, but obviously that is, put on hold.
Once you get out of wrestling shape, it's one hell of a journey to get back in.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about lifting weights, going for runs. I have been going for runs just to keep my sanity, because, that's what I can do. I can't get to a gym now. So I go for a run, and it's good for my mind, good for my thought. I'm more productive after. So I've been doing that.
That's awesome. It's funny. We both wrestled it.
Yeah. Wrestling is such a fantastic sport. Like, after you get your face ground into the mat, everything else is easier. Dude, I just think the world of wrestling, I think, is good for kids to learn how to get beat up and hold their head high, how to lose graciously, and not only that, like you don't come across a tougher room of people than a wrestler, than a room of wrestlers.
We are a very weird bunch of people. You have to cut 10 pounds in a couple of days to make weight. Your coach, especially when my dad wrestled too, and so this was back before they had regulations and everything. So he would weigh 150, and his coach would put him at 180, and then he'd go down to 130, and he would just be going up and down. And up
man, that's ridiculous.
Back in the days of in the boiler room with the trash bags, and things have kind of simmered down a little bit, but we are a fun bunch of people that.
Yeah, I was right at the end of that era when they were starting to clamp down on those practices. I was right at the end of your father's era, maybe, because they were starting to implement, regulations, and what you weigh in at, you can't wrestle too far below, and at the beginning
now
of the season.
It's because I'm 23 now, so
you're a baby then. Yeah, no,
I've walked
I'm 37.
into. Yeah, my era, you can't go higher than 2 weight classes, which I think you were mentioning. But now they take your weight and your skin fat before
your body
the season.
Fat,
yeah, and they won't let you, because what was happening is kids, and it happened to me because I had a lot of injuries, so I weighed in at 195, but then before certifications I dropped down to 180. So too many kids are doing that. So now if you have a certain amount of body fat, some kids will only be able to lose 3 ounces a week. So if they want to go down a weight class, it'll take them 4 months to get there.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's one of those things that gives you character and the ability to just get whooped up on and walk off the mat and
hold your head high. Yeah, absolutely. It's a fabulous skill. It's a good life skill.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a sport that I miss, and you hate going through it, but then you get out of it and you're like, oh, I miss that. I miss getting the shit beat out of it. Walking out of practice crawling because you just can't walk.
Yeah, or just getting like, your face ground raw by someone like, putting like a a half Nelson trying to turn you, or just,
Right.
it's such a great sport, and I just think it teaches so many great life lessons.
Oh yeah, and then you can get into the coaching when you get into the coaches themselves
I'd like to
are
do that. Yeah.
yeah they themselves bring in I like the old school coaches that bring in that 80s style coaching that really gives you the wrestling experience.
Hmm.
But what do you think defines a successful business owner? And it could be, whatever you think. It doesn't have to be monetary. It could
Hmm.
be ethics, whatever you think.
I would say money is certainly part of it. I would say, a financially viable and profitable operation is part of it, but it's not the only part. I would say, being true to who you are and the decisions you would make if you didn't stand to benefit from the decisions. Like, so what I'm saying is that if you took away the financial incentive to cut corners, how would you make those decisions? So if you're making those decisions and you're true to, what your founding values are, who you are on your best day, and, your most honest and caring moment. If you're true to those ideas, I think that's to me, that's success. That and the financial aspect together are probably the two necessary conditions. And I'm sure there are others. You want to do well by the people you employ. You want to, meaningful, gainful employment.
So
You
overall,
want
just
to,
being a ethical person and
yeah, I mean,
acting what you do when no one's looking really defines you is basically what you're saying.
yeah, absolutely. Being the boss that you'd want, being the boss that cares about, the lives and the going-ons of, your lowest paid employee.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. So what's the biggest expense in your business other than labor, which might be the honeybees as the labor, but other
Um,
than
yeah, it's pretty clearly agricultural procurement. Some of the inputs we use are expensive. Vanilla is very expensive, and there are other ones that are expensive. And we source from all over the world, so we have to pay for shipping, international shipping on our account. So those two things, and sometimes there are ways to save on shipping. Because UPS is great at working with you, and putting you onto another person's pallet and then breaking you up when you reach the stateside or whatever.
oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah, UPS has been fantastic for us. So yeah, it's the procurement of stuff we don't produce, buying and that's everything but honeybee stuff. You look at a product and you see, 8 ingredients on it. We don't produce 7 of them.
Yeah, so it could get pretty. So it's the like you said, the products you don't produce are the biggest expense.
Absolutely, yeah. The agricultural inputs we don't produce, biggest expense, probably by far. Yeah.
Awesome. So the last question, and probably the most important one, is if people want to connect with you or your business, where can they find you?
Send me. Go to our website, or you know what? Yeah, let's give it. Send an email to Drew, DREW, at drewshoneybees.com. That's DREW at Drews Honeybees, DREWSHONEYBEES.com. Drew at drewshoneybees.com. That's my personal email. You'll get me. I'll respond to your email. Yeah.
And
Or you can go to our.
and if they want to see more about your products,
Yeah, website is the best spot, and that's www.drewshoneybees.com, DREWSHONEYBEES.com, and you'll find us. Or if you just put Drews Honeybees into which would be 2 words in that instance, into the search engine, you'll turn us up.
do you have any social medias that you want to?
We do. Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and I believe Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I believe I think you call it a slug, it's twitter.com/Drews Honeybees, and that's all one word, DrewsHoneybees.
And what's your handle for Instagram?
Our handle is Drews Honeybees. Yep, two
Okay.
words.
And I'll put that all in the links and
Yeah.
everything so people can find you. But yeah, so awesome. It was great chatting with you. And
Hey,
yeah, we might have to do a follow-up if we stay in quarantine too much longer.
hey, yeah. When this gets over, I'd love to host you at an apiary just to see. Some people. I think some people aren't interested. But dude, to me, this is my 13th year beekeeping. Opening up a hive and see how 60,000 individuals divvy up innumerable tasks among their number is a source of endless fascination for me. And
that
it's
would
cool.
be awesome.
And it's totally safe. Like per our insurance policy, you now have to wear a suit, which we provide. So even if the bees were angry, which they're not going to be, they couldn't sting you. Yeah. So I mean, it's totally safe. And it's
it'll
cool
definitely be a first for me walking in.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't have, being landscaper, I don't exactly have a very good experience with bees, so it'll be interesting to be surrounded by a bunch of them.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Bees get a bad rap because of more aggressive wasps and hornets. If you don't find a stinger in yourself, like a little stinger after getting stung, you didn't get stung by a bee. You likely got stung by a hornet, wasp, or otherwise. Because bees leave a stinger, and if you don't find a stinger, it likely wasn't a honeybee. And bees are away from the hive where you'd likely encounter them are super docile. And they're pretty docile at the hive too. But
not a very aggressive bee. It's more about the wasps or the hornets.
Wasps and the hornets.
Oh my God! I'll tell you, they are not a fun animal to be encountered with.
I can walk among my hives without any, without a problem. I walk by a yellow jacket's nest, and they'll make me pay.
Oh yeah, especially when you're cutting grass, and
Yeah.
there's an in-ground hive, and the blades. I don't know if it sucks them up out of there or if it just pisses them off, but you're on that mower, you're like, oh my God, you just end up jumping off and taking off.
They're a different breed and they're tough.
Oh yeah, they'll chase you. They go far. You end up halfway down the road into another neighborhood and you're still getting stung.
Oh my God, it's terrible. That's imagine an occupational hazard. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We got a can of wasp spray I keep in the truck just so when they come out, like hit them real quick. But yeah, no, it was good. I would like to do that. It would be pretty cool.
Yeah, cool.
All right, that's it for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed learning more about Drew's business. If you can do me a favor and screenshot this and tag him on your Instagram story to show your support. If you want to learn more about how to become a guest on our podcast, email us at ctbusinesspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.